check, 1, 2. This thing on? All right. Welcome, everybody. SmartCon Day 2. Great to see everybody here, and thank you guys. You guys are troopers. Anyone that's watching the live stream, yeah, welcome. It's 8 a.m. here in New York City, so very early on. We're just having our coffee, ready to talk about Web 2 to Web 3, crossing the chasm. This is a topic that's been discussed a lot in the 18 months. However, I truly think this is probably the most diverse panel we've ever had discuss this subject. We have people from all corners of the industry. So just to get some context for anyone who may not be familiar with this discussion, we'll start off with kind of the very high level question. So why don't we just go down the row, tell everybody your name, where you're from, what you're currently working on, and if you could also add in a little bit of why are the inherent principles of Web3 more advantageous for users, and why should they be excited?
Sure. It's Nicholas, and it's pretty shocked that there is still somebody in the stage and on the stage, down the stage, and it's kind of very early. And I'm currently working in the traditional financial institution. It's the biggest one in Taiwan, but it's kind of like a global bank or life insurance company. And we've been doing this kind of stuff on top of blockchain for the past 4 years, and we've implemented some infrastructure, and it's pretty exciting. We are getting ourselves into the public blockchain market and facing the retail market. So I will share, later. So it's happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right.
All right, amazing. Hey guys, my name is Tyler. I'm with Binance Labs. We're the VC arm of Binance. We've been making investments since 2018. Currently a portfolio of about 200 plus projects. We do different stages and also chain agnostic. We cover early stage incubations, ventures, OTC, and fundraise. So I'm here today. Really want to express my greatest gratitude towards the Chainlink team and also everyone else here. Very excited to discuss more about sort of Web 2 to Web 3 transition and how sort of Binance Labs are incubating and also investing projects that's facilitating the whole transformation process.
Fantastic. Max, why don't you take it?
Yeah, hi, I'm Max. I'm working business development at a startup called EthSign. So we're working on decentralized document signing. It's really interesting. It's at the interface of Web 2 and Web 3 itself, so I'm really excited to be on this panel and just chop it up about how I'm thinking about this space. Yeah.
Hey guys, my name is Baley, and I'm the head of growth at a liquid staking protocol called Swell Network. We've just launched, and I'm from San Francisco Bay Area. Happy to be here, talk about Web3. A big part of Web3 is going to be the infrastructure that it sits on, so yeah.
All right, why don't you take us home?
All right, my name's Nick Graves. My community knows me as Gravy, so what's up, Gotcha Gang? I represent Pixelcraft Studios, the dev house behind the Aavegotchi protocol, Aavegotchi NFTs, and our flagship NFT game, the Gotchiverse. So I'm super excited to be alongside all these gentlemen over here and discuss the NFT gaming sector while we get some wonderful questions over here.
All right. Well, now that you guys know our panelists, why don't we start it off with the first topic? And Baley, I actually want to pose this one to you, so hope you're ready. In your mind, what are the significant puzzle pieces we need to see fall in place before your typical person is ready to throw in the towel on Web 2?
Yeah, I think the big part of it is user experience, and some of the puzzle pieces that need to fall into play is using the ability to use the blockchain without, or Ethereum, whatever, without realizing it. I think once users are using social media, whatever it may be on Web3, and they don't necessarily know they're interacting with the blockchain, I think that'll be the key puzzle piece in my mind to really reach mass adoption for Web3.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. And,
I was actually thinking too, like a more simplistic approach is it needs to be simple for the mass adoption to actually happen. Right now it's very clunky. If you're not familiar with the space, you could be turned off very easily. There's extra steps where they wouldn't normally be in Web 2. And on top of that, education is key. I know you've heard it 100, maybe even 1,000 times, but the education barrier in Web 3 in general is a difficult step for most people. So if we up our education levels on our particular sectors or industry that we're in, I think it'll become much easier for everybody to start adopting. And like he mentioned, eventually people won't even realize that they're not only using blockchain, but NFTs and everything in their daily lives.
Yeah. Anyone else want to add on top of that?
Sure, yeah. I think, just to add on to that, I think, there are, from my perspective, there are actually like 3 different factors. I think number one, accessibility, which sort of everybody sort of touched on a little bit, talking about, better UX, UI. To me, I mean, having, the wallet and also, crossing functionalities is adding, additional layers of frictions to the users to get better access to blockchain and different, dApps that are building on top of the ecosystem. So, resolving, sort of tackling down this problem is definitely value add to the entire, like from the user perspective. But I think on top of that, there's also, from the fundamental sort of underlying infrastructure layer, you also have, scalability issues, and also from sort of middleware perspective, you also need to understand sort of better security solutions, right? So I'm more talking about, from smart contract perspective, you'll need better auditing services. Currently, a lot of the services are labor intensive, plus a bit of sort of innovations around AI and also machine learning auditing. But having the hybrid of both, I think will brings a better clear path to the future. And also that sort of pre-deployment of smart contract. But if you talk about like post-deployment, there are a lot of scammers, attackers that are attacking the blockchain ecosystems from different angles. You guys probably often hear about 51% attacks, long-range attacks, that kind of different attacks. So I think having sort of real-time alert and sort of continuous, consistent monitoring of transactions happening on chain, and also different smart contracts addresses being deployed on chain are also key. So I think being able to bridge these gaps can definitely bring wider adoption from Web2 to Web3.
Awesome, I appreciate that. All right, now I got the question that I think is on everybody's mind, and that's, what do you see as the spark that will ignite the next chapter of Web3? Is this gaming? Is this social media? Is this something else? Nick, why don't you start it off?
Yeah, so I don't know, it might sound biased a little bit, but I'm from an NFT gaming development company here. So I truly think gaming is going to be that spark. I think to be able to learn DeFi is incredibly difficult in the first place for some people. And if you gamify it, make it into a game, it's much easier to spend more time learning different things. If you figure out how to add to a liquidity pool by earning or playing with an avatar or using like a digital pet like an Aavegotchi, I think that's going to really bring in a lot more people. Because there's visual learners, and then there's learners that read and interpret from books and whatnot. So this, I think, just simplifies the whole concept. For Aavegotchi itself, we do a little bit of everything. It's DeFi times NFT, from staking to farming to having competitions for rarity and leaderboards. So a lot of what we do, and when I speak to new people about Aavegotchi, is we're a cute 8-bit digital ghost that will teach you exactly how DeFi works. And it's a super fun way to do it. Instead of, like getting lost in white papers or lengthy papers where you read half of it and you're like, oh, maybe I need to start over so I fully understand what might be happening. So it really just makes it super simple, super easy for everybody to get involved, as long as they are familiar with Ethereum and the Polygon chain. We'd definitely love to have you over at Aavegotchi. We have a really big brain community that is super dedicated to the education levels of bringing in new people. So definitely want to shout out to Gotchi Gang. If anybody's on the fence about NFT gaming, NFTs in general, definitely hop into our community, and we'd be more than happy to hold your hand through any questions you may have, whether it's the most basic or the most complex.
All right, well, Tyler, I'd like to ask you that same question, because I know Binance is heavily involved in this space. But what do you guys see over there as what will be the spark that really brings us the next chapter of Web3? Social media, gaming, what's on your guys' mind?
Yeah, 100%. So I think, for us, right, so I think what I've been seeing, especially, currently sort of during sort of the bear market, right, I think, you'll see that a lot of the noises are sort of gone, right, from the bull market. So it's really a good time to, calm down a little bit and think through, what's really needed within the space, right? So from my perspective, any angles from sort of the consumer layer. Could be NFT, GameFi, SocialFi, DeFi. Could, any of these could be, the next sort of explosion, right, in the next bull. But I think to think a bit more about it is sort of, having the underlying infrastructure and also middleware to support the growth and also scalability of these dApps are, as important as well. So let's say, I think to me, right, if you look at sort of the evolution of different technological innovations, right, I think we're at the stage that we can barely sort of cover the requirement and the need from, of course, infrastructure, middleware perspective to cover the needs for these dApps to grow, right? So I think it's really important to further sort of incubate and also invest and also innovate around infrastructure's middlewares. I think to me specifically from infrastructure layer, you'll see different L1s, L2s, different blockchain ecosystems booming, growing from different angles. But I think having different solutions to help with throughput and also scalability is definitely a plus. And sort of from the middleware perspective, really being able to remove the friction between sort of the underlying blockchain and the dApps is also important. That could be from security, cross-chain, bridging, decentralized storage, DID, different angles. But I think having the fundamental underlying infrastructure middleware to support the dApps, I think these are super important. So I think from my perspective, it's very important to keep looking at heavy infrastructure middleware deals, which is what we're doing right now currently for Binance Labs as well.
Nice. Anyone else want to add anything before we move on to the next one?
Yeah,
Actually, I'd probably hit on the social media too, because obviously we're not quite as as far as Facebook or Twitter or Instagram in the Web3 space, but the Web3 space is going to give the ability for your average Joe to earn on the information that they're sharing. For instance, like Lenster on Lens Protocol, you can create a username and start posting with the world or anybody that's on Lenster, and they can actually collect your posts. And you, as you don't have to be an influencer to earn to share your content. So it's really giving content ownership and asset ownership to the user, which is pretty cool. So it's still a little bit clunky at the moment. It's not as easy as like Facebook or to be able to log into Instagram clearly. But once we get there with the infrastructure, I think that'll be a huge play in it, because then it doesn't take somebody that wants to play games or somebody that everybody has a social media account these days. So I think it'll really aid in the adoption, but we still need some more streamlined dApps and all that stuff, infrastructure. So.
Yeah, I know, Baley, you and I were talking before this panel, and you still want to get whitelisted for Lens. So,
yeah.
Christina, I know you're watching this. Can you please hook our man up? Thank you. We appreciate it in advance.
Would be much appreciated.
All right. For the next one, wanted to talk about basically the future, how it will be built. Do we see Web3 being built by startups, or will it be the incumbents who continue to carry the torch? And Max, why don't you kick us off on this topic?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a combination of both. We see the incumbents, we see these large crypto companies coming in. We also see institutions and enterprises that are continuing to run the internet as we know it. But even them, I was having a conversation with some of my friends in like traditional finance a couple nights ago, and they were talking about, some of these large PE firms, some of these large banks, they might not be completely bought into the space as of now, but they are hiring teams. They're keeping their eyes on it. You know what I mean? Because they want to be able to jump when it's time. And we've already seen, the influence of venture capital and how large infusions of money into this space are driving the evolution of our technology, are driving the innovation of our technology. But it's what that money is fueling. So it's going to be, the startups in that regard, then those innovators and, us, the people at these conferences right now that are actually creating this innovation, that are, moving forward and pushing it forward. I also see from a perspective that incumbents can influence the space in terms of leadership as well. We saw the talk last night between, I don't know if you guys were here, if you saw Sergey talk to Eric Schmidt. You see the difference in like seasoned leadership is what he just exudes. You know what I mean? I was talking to one of my friends, he was like, that guy's BPM did not, or heartbeats per minute, did not increase above like 60, like the entire time. He was completely cool, calm, collected. He made the entire room feel like everybody mattered, everything that everyone was doing was completely important, and that we really are pushing forward like this future, this technological evolution of society. And I think that leadership, that type of leadership is going to be extremely important in attracting more people to the space and really perpetuating the growth of the space as well and the maturation of the space.
Yeah, and to kind of elaborate on that too, I totally agree. It's going to be a combination. It really depends on the innovators and what they decide on. If they choose their track and stick with it, or if they go and get hired by the traditional Web3 companies, or let's face it, the Web2 traditional companies have a lot more capital and connections than a lot of us do. A lot of the innovators. I'm not saying that innovators don't, but they'll be able to catch up pretty quickly when they're ready. So, like you mentioned, they might not be bought in 100% right now, but they're definitely investing in the team and the structure to be able to be there when they're ready. And they might not ever be ready, but it's something they'll have to kind of adapt to at some point.
So this is an interesting dynamic, and it's something that you see in Web 2, where you have these kind of small startups that fill a very unique niche, and then they end up getting acquired by a FANG-type company. That might be a little bit different with a DAO versus a Web 2 buying something like an LLC. How might that look in terms of, would we see that sort of dynamic where these smaller startups get acquired by these larger incumbents, and what might that look like if it would to happen? Anyone want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
I can actually just ask something, like following by the Tyler, is kind of a spark question. It's kind of a boring thing in the banking side, like a digital asset, like banking services on top of a blockchain. And we would love to work with a lot of startups to implement so many hardware, middleware, and kind of like infrastructure. But we also did it on our own because we would like to be a kind of a startup in a financial group. So we have the same mindset while we're working with the startups. And I think all the startups, maybe some of them are seeking for acquired by the very big enterprise or a very big company, corporate. But I think all of the applications being brought out by this kind of startup would be very important for the very big enterprise, because we're aiming for kind of like a very boring services, but the kind of interesting services and applications we brought out by the very innovative startups. So the combination, I agree with that totally. So we need to just work with all the startups out there very smoothly, and kind of like combining with each other's ideas and see what we can do. And also, we would like to implement all the things on our own, because that's kind of our tradition in a very big financial institution. But we, right now, maybe from this year, since this year, we're not trying to do anything from the scratch. So I think working together in a collaboration is pretty important. Yeah,
absolutely. And Nick or Todd, did you guys have something that you wanted to add on to that?
I mean, he hit it on the head. It's going to be a collaboration. It's going to be a mixture of the two. There's some applications where Web 2 makes more sense than Web 3. For instance, the ability to make something simple enough for the wider public to be able to adopt it. So it's going to be a synergy that you work with as much as you work against, I guess, if you're an innovator, where a lot of the ideas will come. But reiterating, like the innovators, the early adopters, the path that they choose to stick with, or maybe they want to go get hired by like Apple or Google or something and help them build something out. But definitely agreeance over here.
Excellent. All right, and Nicholas, just want to go back to you for a second. Really liked your perspective, but What do you think the adoption curve of Web3 is going to look like? Is it something that's going to be linear? Is it going to be parabolic? What sort of time frames are we looking at? And of course, nobody has a crystal ball, but your best guess, what do you think this ends up looking like if we're having this same chat 20 years from now?
Yeah, that's a very good question. As a traditional financial institutions, again, we're trying to bring out so many things on top of a blockchain technology. But the learning curve or the curve from the aspect of time, from my experience, when we just roll out a very new applications on top of blockchain technology, we have to talk to the authority and regulator for at least 6 months. They're not thinking about anything and new ideas until we bring something to them. And they expected us to roll out so many details and just propose to them. Then they will challenge and raise another question to us. So that kind of a back and forth conversations takes at least 6 months. Then we just got some feedback. Then we modify our application infrastructure on top of blockchain. Then maybe it takes another 6 months, so at least 1 year, I think. And the most difficult part is talking to regulator. But before we can talk to regulator, internally discussion is kind of very important from the scratch, because we have to talk so many managements over why is this business model should be on top of a blockchain. So after all the discussion and kind of casual talk, a very serious talk, then we just talk to regulators. So the curve is kind of focusing on the timing is the most thing we are planning to do before we can roll out everything. So I know it's kind of a very conservative thing, especially for a financial institution, but we got so much resources to do anything we want. But before that, we should just break through all the regulations. But we're not trying to challenge them, because they'll be not coming out a better result. Yeah.
Excellent. Anybody want to add on top of that? Anyone want to take a stab at what they think the adoption curve will look like, and if we're having the same conversation 20 years from now, in retrospect, how did it all go down?
Well, I can hit on the NFT gaming industry, and I think that it's a matter of the education level and the easeability of playing a game. And not only that, but you have to create a game that's fun, that gives people a reason to come back, not just push a couple buttons and then take off. Whether they're making money or not, it still has to be fun. So in my opinion, if we can build a game that is equally or more fun than a traditional game, I think the gaming sector is going to take off very, very quickly. We've seen a short stint of it here recently with some of the top games that went through the bull market. But we're still, as a whole GameFi, we're still a little bit a ways away from getting that the traditional gamer to switch from their $60 video game where they can play for hours versus an NFT game where they could play for hours like they normally would, but maybe they're earning NFTs or earning an ROI or upgrading with in-game ERC20 tokens and all that stuff. So
I feel like extrapolating from even beyond GameFi, that just applies simplicity as well as giving the people a reason to come back to these decentralized applications.
Absolutely.
And to all these protocols is going to be completely essential to gaining a parabolic adoption curve, like you were saying. I mean, I think it depends on who and how much is going to survive this bear market, and we'll see what the trend of influence in the industry is once this is all said and done and the dust is settled. And then I think we'll see. I personally think we'll see an adoption curve that's similar to any adoption curve of a new technology. You know what I mean? I think it might take a little bit longer since there's been a little stigma around the industry to start off, had a little rocky start. But, otherwise, I think 20 years from now, I think we'll be oh, yeah, people were silly for not, adopting this.
Sergey said 5 years last night, so hopefully.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we're still a little ways away.
And Tyler, I definitely want to ask you the same question because I know you guys are very in deep over there at Binance and very involved in the gaming space. There's a lot of GameFi taking place on BNB chain. So what do you think this is going to look like 10, 20 years from now? And what kind of set it off and how quickly was it adopted?
Yeah, 100%. So, 10, 20 years, these are like light years in crypto. So it's really hard to say right now. But I think from like a general sort of trend perspective from both the projects, venture side, right? So to me, it's the very similar sort of bell type curve for like a traditional technological evolution, innovation, right? So you have to start with, you have the innovators, and then you'll have the early stage adopters, and then you'll have the majority users, and then everybody else, right? So I think we're about like in between sort of innovator, slash sort of early stage adopters, type stage. So I think there are really a lot of things need to be, a lot of challenges need to be tackled, a lot of frictions that need to be resolved. I think a good point to sort of resonate with Nicholas is sort of regulations and compliance, right? Because you'll have it's a fully decentralized. I mean, at least Web3 is trying to build a fully decentralized trustless ecosystem, right? But then you'll have demand from both the traditional side and also from sort of the pure sort of DAO side, right? Like you guys mentioned. So I think depends on the needs, right? That's why you'll have products like non-custodial wallets, decentralized wallets, Gnosis Safe type of sort of treasury management toolings, right? And also you'll have custodials. You have like more sort of a centralized custody, sort of like Fireblocks, Binance custody. So I think depends on the need from different users. I think it's gonna definitely be like a hybrid of both. And I think I think there are a couple of things that we need to solve before moving on to sort of the next stages. Sort of number one, compliance, regulations, right? So making sure everything's sort of compliant and licensed, and that's what Binance has been trying to do over the past few years. And I think number two is sort of remove the frictions, as I sort of keep reiterating before, removing the friction from the user perspective. Number three, having sort of more compatible, highly scalable infrastructure, blockchain layers to support the dApps building on top of it. So, by achieving all these, I think you'll be able to gradually switch from sort of, the early adopters to, more, users. So I think these are some of the problems. There are going to be a lot of problems ahead of us, but I think what's good is, we're all here to support. At least Binance Labs, we're always here to support different founders, innovative teams, regardless bear or bull markets. So, yeah, I'm very excited to see what's the next 5 years, but it's really hard to tell. 10, 20 years, hopefully we are moving towards the right direction.
And this discussion actually sparked a new question in my mind. I actually chatted with the panelists beforehand and gave them an idea of what we wanted to talk about. And this one's a little bit of a wild card. And I want to direct it at Tyler and Nick to kick it off. So I hope you guys are ready. And one of the things that I've seen over at Chainlink Labs doing business development and my day job when I'm not moderating panels at SmartCon is we're starting to see a blend of GameFi and DeFi. For example, you have JPEG, which is a lending and borrowing platform for blue chip NFTs. You can put your Bored Ape, your Punk, your Moonbird, Azuki up as collateral, take a 40% LTV loan against it. So you're starting to see these lines get blurred. Do you think this is something that we continue along with GameFi, and it's not just Punk's monkey profile pictures, but actually maybe in-game items? Will we have AMMs where you swap one in-game currency for another, or some epic rare item in game A for another equivalent item in game B? Do you see that we'll have the increasing blend of DeFi and GameFi beyond just hey, stake your tokens here and you get more tokens in return? And I don't know who wants to kick that off.
I can start. Yeah.
Nick, go right ahead.
Absolutely. We've been doing that for over 2 years now, so it's not new to us. We've been able to stake Aave generating A tokens inside the Aavegotchi avatars themselves. And as this becomes more mainstream, people are going to identify with their monkey JPEG or whatever PFP they have, and they're going to want to be able to use that in an interoperable way. They're not going to want to have a different avatar for every single experience or every single game that they play. You're really going to become invested not only financially but emotionally in your avatar. So for instance, Aavegotchi, we're 100% on chain all the way down to the artwork. So we've actually been into like World Wide Webs, the metaverse, and we have the ability to go to other metaverses as our own Aavegotchi avatars. And it's more than just a profile picture. It can be a profile picture, but there's an incredible amount of utility behind the Aavegotchi NFTs themselves. And speaking of which, picking up something in the Gotchiverse, our metaverse, we have in-game ERC20 tokens, FUD, FOMO, Alpha, Keck, and Glitter. You can find them all on CoinGecko, CoinMarketCap, to take a look at that. But we use those in-game currencies to upgrade the installations on our land. For instance, a harvester or an alchemical altar, which you can go to, what we call channeling, and it will give you a percentage of these Gotchus Alchemica ERC20 tokens based on the rarity of your Aavegotchi, and then you can use those ERC20 tokens to upgrade your installations on your land. For instance, a harvester, which is like a miner itself, where it takes more ERC20 tokens, Gotchus Alchemica, from the land parcel below. So you could use those in-game currencies to not only purchase, but upgrade your installations, your harvesters, your alchemical altar, your reservoirs, walls, kind of like a Clash of Clans type scenario. But all of those are NFTs. And so each individual one is, it can be burned, it could be upgraded, it's all on-chain, 100% on-chain. So I think a lot more things are going to take that into consideration, and especially traditional games. I mean, we are incredibly gung-ho on Web3. We are headed face first into Web3. When there's a Web3 approach and a Web2 approach can easily do it, we'll still stick with Web3. We're not interested in the traditional game. But you'll see that in, let's say, Call of Duty or something like that, where you'll be able to, maybe you get a streak of some sort that they might start incorporating NFT rewards. But is that, how much different than it already is in traditional gaming? So, yeah, with that.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Tyler, go right ahead.
GameFi seems to be a thing which is totally detached to financial institution, but we're actually designing this kind of concept and services to our clients. Because we definitely cannot provide the services like buying and selling Bitcoin and Ether to our clients, especially in a bank or maybe a life insurance company, securities company, like a prime broker. But there is, for example, one of our subsidiaries, the life insurance company, they just issued their own NFT, and to our very high net worth customer, sort of like that. Then we are planning to put those maybe avatar NFT into some kind of a platform, and provide all the services in like a gaming style, gaming concept to our clients from a parent company, from my company, Financial Holdings. So this is not definitely a business model, but you can just grab all the audience and the clients, focus and then just get them tight with this kind of NFT and something like a gaming life. So we have so many arms under our whole group. It's not only financial subsidiaries, like a tech company, like a hotel. So these sort of arms and subsidiaries can just provide any kinds of other angle and anchor points for us, for parent company to do anything for our clients.
Right. Excellent. Appreciate that. And then Tyler, just wanted to get your thoughts real quick on the financial aspect of GameFi merging with DeFi. As I mentioned, we're seeing protocols start to offer lending for profile pictures, blue chips. Do you think in the future we see something similar for options markets for Bored Apes, perpetual pools, things like that? Will the lines increasingly get blurred?
I think there are a couple of things. So from like an investor perspective, right? So I think how we sort of define a good project, or at least innovative and sustainable project, is whether with or without the token, right? Your product should be able to have product market fit. You should be able to design a product that has strong user base and also well accepted without the token itself. right? So the revenue business model has to make sense, right, before you add an additional layer of tokenomics, right? So the tokenomics is sort of, to me, it's, you know, additional incentivization layer that can increase the ownership, you know, monetization for all the different participants within sort of Web3 ecosystem. So I think, you know, from sort of lending or sort of DeFi or GameFi perspective, I think, you know, if the project is able to manage, you know, their business revenue model successfully, and also make sure they're continuously monitoring the risks, right, behind putting additional DeFi, either it be lending, collateralized, under collateralized options, right? As long as they're monitoring the risks and they have a mechanism and solution for, you know, market volatility, I think there's definitely going to be a great synergy. But I think, you know, to your users and I think to your participants, right, having that additional layer of security and risk protection are super important.
Awesome, appreciate it. And looks like we got time for one more topic. And Baley, I want to start this one off with you. Are there any areas of Web3 that you think are currently underserved or maybe out of focus even to those in the industry itself?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is ownership of like your like real estate and unique assets that are non-fungible in real life. So I think that's a big part that's like lacking, and I thought this bull market we would come forward with. But I think next time around we should really see stuff like, you know, it being integrated with real estate and luxury things like, you know, Tiffany has already started doing stuff with their CryptoPunks in their necklace. So I think that's what we see is a lot of more like physical things being accompanied by the NFT, you know, as like a certificate of authenticity versus how we do it now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Max, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to that, I think a big thing that we need to work on then is DID, right? When it comes to connecting on-chain ownership to real-life assets, like we need development in the KYC space, because I mean, you know, you're gonna have to know who it is in real life who's owning like a chunk of land.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that we really need to work on. Also, it's like contractual ownership of land as well. You know, it needs to be connected to on-chain ownership and reflected there too. I think that's definitely what we're working on over at EthSign, is, you know, really allowing our users to sign these contracts, you know, with their private keys. So you can enable DAOs to own a parcel of land with multi-sig. They can sign. You don't even have to know everybody in there completely. If you want to stay anonymous, you can stay anonymous. As long as you sign the contract with a private key, it works out and you own the piece of land. So I mean, I think additional infrastructure like that, and so, you know, this decentralized law layer development as well, I think that'll be completely beneficial too.
You're absolutely right.
One thing I just thought of also that's underserved, I think in Web3 is sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Come back to me. Sorry.
Well, I want to get your thoughts on this, Nicholas, because you have a different perspective. You come more from the institutional world. We're more of like the startup world. So, from your perspective, what are us here, us kind of on the more startup end? What are we missing? What do you guys on the institutional side, really have a need for?
I think we're not missing anything. Maybe we are missing something, because as kind of like a data ownership, we're trying to get them back to all the clients. You know, we're the typical centralized institution and company in the world, like financial institution, but we are also designing the things kind of like a DID, a decentralized side of the wallet. My colleague there, Jenny, is the ownership of the wallet project. So we're trying to do this to collaborate and have some synergy with the startups, because they are all doing this kind of thing. But the tool might not be very useful or helpful for under our own implementation. So we're trying to get more startups' attention. Just explain to them what we're trying to do. And something like wallet is kind of very big tool and a big application, because you want to add something on top of it. It takes a long time. So especially for all the data in financial institution, that's not belongs to the institution. All the data belongs to the customer and clients. So this kind of thing like wallet, it's a very typical tool. Think like no wallet, no life in the Web3 world. So we're trying to do the first MVP on our own, but we're trying to get more application and new functionality from startups. So this kind of they're not missing. Maybe we're missing, so we would like to tell them, of all time.
Yeah. Awesome. Appreciate that. And looks like we're coming close to time, but anyone want to give any final thoughts, anything that they want to get off their chest or share with the audience before we wrap up?
Not really.
All right. Looks like that's
Thanks for
it
coming,
for
guys.
today's topic, but really appreciate all of our panelists. Let's give it up for them, and also let's give it up for yourselves. 8 a.m. day 2. You guys are the real
thanks
heroes.
for coming early.
Coming here this early. We really appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.